Well, let's probably start then. I want to introduce our speakers for today. Here we are gathered for this interview to talk a little about how we work with clients and how clients work with us. Firstly, this will be beneficial for future clients and the companies we interview. It will also be useful for them to talk about this later, as it is a kind of platform for the opportunity to work in such an innovative trend. And that will be useful. Today is our first instance where we would like to approach this systematically, interview and be interviewed by our clients regarding such collaboration. And now I would like to introduce our interviewees today. This is Dennis Shiroki. He's the founder of the company Smart Tel Plus, which operates under the brand Apiphonica. Next, we have Pavel Tikhonov, the Chief Operating Officer of Apiphonica, who works in market development in Central Asia also. And Inessa Malkova, Director of the Department for Individual Clients at the company Sarkor, a fairly large company in Uzbekistan. And I, Konstantin Selgitsky, a board member of the Estonian company Smart Tel Plus, which, I want to reiterate, operates under the brand Apiphonica, and I am the interviewer today. This is my hobby.
Great! Today we want to have a very informal conversation in a relaxed atmosphere. Yes, right. It is very important for us to share our Uzbek experience with our other clients, mainly with the guys in the market. This Uzbek experience is very important to us. It is crucial for us that you, as representatives of Sarkor, chose us as your partner, believed in us, because we know that Sarkor is one of the largest operators, one of the most innovative operators and internet providers in the territory of Uzbekistan. We also see Sarkor not just as a client, but as a full-fledged partner. We will further discuss our approach to developing relations with Sarkor, not only as a client, but also as a collaborator. We believe that Sarkor can become a center of artificial intelligence in the service sector in Uzbekistan. Additionally, they can share and utilize the experience not only for their own benefit, but also offer AI-based services to their clients in the future. Well, and of course, it will improve the quality of service. We genuinely hope for this. That's how we discussed openly about how the implementation went. How did our artificial intelligence as our platform help you or not help you? Yes, what difficulties arose during the implementation process? What tasks did you initially set, and what was the outcome?
Что получилось, в конце, ну и, наверное, там, дальнейший план
Well, I
какой.
suppose I shall start our interview then. I wanted to ask Inessa if she could tell us a little about Sarkor Telecom, the company she works for, and perhaps even where she lives. Also, what kinds of tasks do clients most often come to you with?
И вот с какими задачами к вам чаще всего обращаются клиенты?
Sarkor Telecom is one of the largest internet companies and telecommunications providers in Uzbekistan, with a substantial subscriber base. The most common reasons for customer inquiries are often related to some kind of negative customer experience, such as network incidents, accidents, and technical failures. As Dennis mentioned, it is at these moments when the customer feels a lack of service that they start actively calling our contact center with their problems for us to solve.
What difficulties did you face as a call center before implementing the voice bot? And what was the main trigger for launching the automation project? Why a voice bot or why an AI agent? We now prefer to say AI agent instead of voice bot.
The main difficulty during most outages is the surge of inquiries to the contact center, which it physically cannot handle. If a major outage occurs, like a network failure, a large number of incoming calls come in, and the operators not only can't answer all these calls, but also can't fully process them, meaning they can't resolve issues with the clients. That's when the idea to automate typical calls emerged. These are a portion of the calls. Most calls relate to a network incident, but many are simply about contract information like, "What is my balance?" or "Why is my internet not working if I didn't top up my balance on time?" All these inquiries are common, and we realize that they can be managed without the need for operators.
How many calls can you handle in a day or during peak times? At what point does the situation occur where the client hears, "Please wait. We are very busy" on the line? Sometimes it feels like 10 minutes or even endless for quite a while. How do
Well,
you
in normal
manage to cope
circumstances,
with
yes.
this?
The call center handles 600 calls a day. 700 is common, and up to 1,000 or 1,100 calls is the maximum capacity that operators can manage. If some kind of accident happens, then the number of calls reflects its scale. There have been cases when we received up to 17,000 calls in a day. On average, yesterday, during incidents, the number of calls doubled, meaning 2 to 2,500 calls can come into the contact center, and we physically couldn't handle half of them.
And have you previously tried to manipulate the situation in the call center? In the contact center, in such a way as to double the number of operators or somehow redirect calls? For example, there might be a tiered system, first level support, second, third, and so on. How have we still managed to stay in a situation where during peak moments the phone says, "Please wait, we will assist you with information," or where you are somehow able to handle such situations internally? Well, perhaps by deploying more operators to answer customer calls.
Скажем, пустить больше операторов для того, чтобы отвечать на звонки клиентов.
I understand the question well. Generally, the contact center's schedule is arranged based on the hours of greatest demand, specifically during peak times of customer inquiries. We certainly bring in extra operators who join the line remotely. However, increasing the number of staff at these times does not allow us to process all calls, and staff availability is limited, right? Therefore, we cannot have 80 to 90 people on reserve who are sufficiently qualified to handle inquiries for technical reasons and to maintain them. Paying salaries every month for them to work on the line only 2 or 3 times seems impractical for the company. An operator, in my view, should be the person who resolves the client's problem and provides a solution during the call. As a result, we aim to make the first and second line support operators more versatile, and we further train them so that any operator can resolve even complex technical issues.
In other words, they generally have enough competence to respond on the first attempt, perhaps even to quite complex questions. I'm not just talking about passing on some information, but mainly solving problems such as the internet not working, rebooting a router, and resolving issues with specific IP addresses, among other things.
Operators can perform all tasks remotely, such as diagnostics and reconfiguration. They can do this now for everything that doesn't require physical intervention. However, some tasks involve physical parts, which necessitates a visit. For example, working with subscriber equipment, like replacing a cable at the subscriber's location. These issues are resolved remotely where possible. However, there are issues where you simply need to wait, such as an accident on a main network or main cable. In these cases, we wait for maintenance to resolve the problem, and the subscribers wait with us. For example, a subscriber might call the contact center multiple times every 15 minutes, adding to the load. And as we see, such such typical inquiries definitely require automation because the operator still won't be able to help with anything here.
And I am probably reflecting on something important here, which generally relates to how we are utilizing our automation. We are not opposing it, but rather offering this automation to our clients. It enables, especially in such moments, to maintain a decent brand reputation by receiving requests and processing them efficiently on the first contact.
Обработать достаточно качественно заявки, которые приходят в колл-центр. А если не секрет,
These requests come to the call center, and if it's not a secret, you mentioned that the contact center itself is quite a large organization for you, right? Like you have a lot of people working there.
The contact center mainly comprises two main lines, with 2 shifts on average in each. Besides the operators of the first and second lines, they indeed have different grades. However, overall, these are the first and second line operators. As in many contact centers, all these roles are merged into one line for us. Then there is the night shift. There are supporting functions such as auxiliaries, coordinators, registrars, and so on. These are more supportive roles overall. About 40 people work in our contact center, including all supporting functions.
Do you ever find yourself in situations where you need to optimize personnel? Well, for various reasons. Business is business. Sometimes we are forced to reduce staff. But the products offered by SA Core are only increasing and becoming more complex. And yes, how do you handle this? On one hand, the contact center is purely a cost. There's nothing you can do about that. On the other hand, of course, you need the resources to develop your products because time moves on, trains run quickly, and you need to keep up with competitors and everything else in this world. Yet at the same time, there are challenges, things that act as barriers, almost like borders. How do you deal with this?
Fortunately for us, the competencies of the contact center operators have reached a quite high level. They are the main source for filling vacant positions within the company, as contact center agents are the first to be available or newly appointed. Indeed, Sarkor has long ceased to be just a telecom service, and with this change, new positions are emerging. The level of competence that the staff possess allows them to easily integrate into any role within the company. Regarding reduction, optimization is a standard task that is always present. Any new product or investment involves automation, which leads to staff reduction and a decrease in personnel numbers. In fact, we have already relinquished, so to speak, one of our third shifts. Looking ahead, we plan to further reduce the contact center staff number. We are now quite skilled at distributing calls and understanding how many staff members are needed on each line.
На самом деле мы уже отказались условно от одной третьей смены, которая у нас была, и в дальнейшем мы планируем еще снизить количество персонала контакт-центра, тем более сейчас мы умеем довольно уже четко распределять звонки и понимать, сколько персонала на какой линии нам сейчас нужно.
Inessa, you mentioned that there are 40 people in the call center. If it's not a secret, there is line staff, right, who are on the line answering calls and serving clients. Additionally, there are quality control staff, script writers, managers, supervisors, and all the management team. What is the approximate proportion of management to a single employee on the line today? In other words, roughly speaking, how many management personnel are there for every employee on the line? Is it divided as 30 to 10, 20 to 20, or 35 to 5?
If you estimate, there won't actually be that many agents. Out of approximately 40 people, around 25 are agents, with the rest in supporting roles, quality control supervision, or working with chats and social networks. So, our contact center can now at least partially handle marketing tasks within the company. That is, we manage all inquiries that come through social media. We process all complaints received via the internet through various services like Yandex, GIS, and others. We handle all mentions and address everything that comes in.
все претензии, которые поступают через интернет, через там различные Яндексы, 2GIS и так далее. Вот все упоминания о Саркоре мы все отрабатываем.
I wanted to follow up on Dennis's question. Here's an interesting point. We are discussing agents who have some experience, but we are also interested in the onboarding process for new agents. How long does their training typically take? After all, we don't gain much, but we invest a lot.
Yeah, the cost of putting
Затраты
an employee
на
on the
вывод
line.
сотрудника на линию, да.
Well, our
Ну,
onboarding process is
онбординг у
quite
нас,
short,
честно
honestly.
говоря,
We have a
короткий.
clear training
У нас
system that
есть
enables
четкая
agents to
система
handle
обучения,
initial
которая позволяет
requests,
вот,
and we
первичные
conduct the
запросы
complete initial
оператора
training
решить,
over
и мы
2
за 2
days.
дня
On the third day,
проводим
the
полностью
agent joins the
первичное
line.
обучение. На третий день
Here,
оператор
we
встает
have
в
additional
линию.
tools so that
Здесь
the
у нас
agent isn't
есть
initially alone on the line.
дополнительные
Their
там
supervisor is
инструменты для
present
того, чтобы в
alongside
линии
them.
оператор
At any
первоначально
moment,
находился
the
не один с
supervisor can
ним,
take over the call and
параллельно
resolve a more
присутствует его
complex issue for the
супервайзер, и в любой
client
момент он
without
может
transferring
перевести
it to
звонок
another
на себя
operator.
и
In
там более
general,
сложные
our
задачи
contact
клиенту
center
решить
conducts
без
certification
переключения
every 3
на другого
months.
оператора.
We have 4 levels for
В
operators.
целом, каждые 3
Every 3
месяца в
months,
нашем
we hold
контакт-центре
certification for
проводится
both
аттестат. У
service
нас
and
есть 4
technical
грейда у
knowledge,
операторов.
assessing their
Каждые 3
overall
месяца мы
customer
проводим аттестацию
orientation,
как
engagement,
сервисных
and
там качеств,
performance results
технических
over the
знаний,
past 3
по
months. Based on this
клиентоориентированности их
data,
оцениваем,
operators
вообще в
can move
целом по
up or down one of
вовлеченности.
these levels.
И по
This,
результатам
in
работы
turn, affects their
вместе. Исходя
motivation
из этих
system
данных,
and the
операторы
tasks
могут
they are permitted to
на один
handle
из
within their
этапов
role.
перейти как вверх, так и
As we
вниз.
know, the
Это
operator is
влияет
still
на
that
их
person, that
мотивацию и
sponge,
на те
absorbing the
задачи,
most
которые они
negativity
могут в рамках
directly
своей
from
должности
clients.
решать. Поэтому
They
в целом
constantly
все
need support
операторы
to prevent burnout.
постоянно находятся в
Therefore,
режиме
we
онбординга,
regularly
тем более
provide
появляются
game-based
новые
training,
продукты.
extra chocolates,
И,
a pleasant
как мы
office
знаем,
environment,
оператор
everything
все-таки
we
это
can
тот
offer.
человек,
We give these
метагубка,
because they are
которая
responsible
впитывает
for
больше всего
ensuring the client
негатива, да,
leaves
от
with their issue
клиентов, и им
resolved,
постоянно
stays with the
требуется поддержка,
company,
чтобы у них не
and has a
происходило вот
positive
этого
impression
выгорания.
after the
Поэтому с
interaction.
ними постоянно вот эти вот
I just
игровые
missed, but
тренинги,
Mimo set us up.
дополнительные
We understood that you
шоколадки,
have a fairly
красивые
large professional
офисы,
contact
все, что
center
можно
with an
дать,
implemented
все им
personnel
даем, потому что
rotation
именно они
system,
отвечают за
grading,
то,
and
чтобы
ongoing
клиент остался
certification.
с
We
решенной
give them
задачей,
this
клиент
support
остался
because
внутри
they are the ones
компании, у клиента
responsible for
создалось
ensuring
приятное
the client
впечатление
leaves
после
satisfied.
общения.
Ну, мы поняли, что у
We
вас
understand
достаточно
that you have a
большой
relatively large
профессиональный
professional
контакт-центр
contact
с
center with an
внедренной
implemented
системой
personnel
ротирования
rotation system,
персонала, с градированием,
grading,
с
and
постоянной
constant
аттестацией.
certification. So,
Вот,
to
при этом,
summarize, the ratio
если
between
так
staff on the line management and call
просуммировать, да,
center support is
пропорция между
approximately
людьми на
25 to
линии
15,
и
correct?
людьми в менеджменте и поддержке колл-центра это где-то 25 на 15 получается, да. При этом колл-центр выполняет...
At the same
Это не
time, this
колл-центр,
call
это
center
центр
isn't just
обработки
a
клиентских
traditional call
запросов, который
center.
работает
It functions as
omnikanально,
a
с
customer
разными
request processing
мессенджерами,
center that operates
социальными
across multiple
сетями,
channels,
имейлами
including
и
various messaging
также
apps,
голосовыми
social networks,
звонками.
emails,
Вот.
and
При
voice
этом
calls
вы
simultaneously.
рассматриваете
You view the
колл-центр
call
как
center
узел
as a
кадров
training ground for further
для дальнейшего
advancement within a
продвижения
growing company. It
внутри
seems you
растущей
are probably
компании. Это,
champions
ну,
in the
как
field
вы
of
просто
building such
чемпионы,
centers.
наверное, в области построения колл-центров. Можно так
I
Наверное,
hope we
и
would like
еще
to.
хотели бы.
Вот.
Despite
И при
everything
том, что
appearing very
все на самом
professional and
деле
high
выглядит очень
quality, what
профессионально и
ultimately
качественно,
became the
что
main trigger?
все-таки стало
Why did you
основным
decide to
триггером,
pursue
почему
automation?
вы
Aside from
все-таки
our
решили
persuasion and
заняться
demonstrating the
автоматизацией? Ну,
benefits for
кроме
you
того, что мы
personally as the
вас
head of this department,
уговаривали и
what
показывали
was the
все
key reason?
бенефиты,
It
что
would
вот
be
для вас
interesting to hear your opinion.
лично, как
Why do you think
руководителя
it
этого
is important to move
подразделения,
forward with automation?
стало основным триггером, почему все-таки нужно делать автоматизацию?
Сейчас,
Yes,
да, наверное,
probably.
это
It
выглядит
looks
уже
like a
как такой
well-organized contact
причесанный
center with a clearly
контакт-центр
structured system
с
of training,
четко сформированной
rotation, and so
системой
on. However, when we
обучения,
realized that the
ротирования и так
contact
далее.
center
Но
was
в
one of the
моменты,
main
когда
reasons
мы
for user churn and
поняли то, что
dissatisfaction,
контакт-центр —
everything
это
looked
одна из
different.
основных
The
причин
agents had a key
оттока
KPI,
и
which was how many
недовольства
times they could
наших
answer a call in a
пользователей,
day.
все
An
выглядело
ideal day
иначе.
was
И
when an incident occurred
у
and
оператора был такой
17,000
KPI, как,
inquiries came in.
например, сколько раз он ответит на звонок за день. То есть если вот идеальный день — это когда случилась авария и поступило 17 тысяч обращений. Там можно было за день выполнить свой
That was nearly enough for
норматив,
them to meet
который
their monthly
ставился на
targets in a
месяц
single
оператора.
day.
При этом задача решить
However,
вопрос
the
абонента
agent was
никакой
not
не
tasked
стояла.
with resolving the subscriber's issues.
Часто были такие
Often they would
истории,
say,
что
I can't
оператор
answer your question right
говорил:
now.
я сейчас не могу
Call back in
ответить на
10
ваш
minutes,
вопрос, там
which was
перезвоните
due to
через
the
10
agent's
минут,
slow
чтобы связана с
qualification
низкой
process overall.
квалификацией оператора.
The classifier that agents used was very opaque and unclear. For analysis, to understand what our subscribers come to us with, there was a lack of data.
Вот для анализа, для того, чтобы понимать вообще, с чем приходят к нам абоненты наши, не хватало данных. Плюс
Plus,
не
the
хватало
agents lacked
знаний у
knowledge,
операторов,
and there was
плюс
some random
это
entry of
это
information into our
рандомное
CRM
занесение
system,
информации
making it
в нашу
practically impossible to work
CRM-систему,
with it.
и
Overall, to
работать с ней было
understand what is
фактически
happening,
невозможно.
we started from the
И
realization that we had
вот в
standard
целом для того,
requests that were
чтобы
handled
мы
entirely differently by each
понимали
agent.
вообще, что происходит, мы начали с того, что у нас есть типовые обращения, которые совершенно по-разному каждым оператором отрабатываются. И как будто
It
нам
seemed to us
показалось,
that
что
these
эти
typical
типовые
requests
обращения
could
мы
be
можем
categorized
вывести в отдельную
separately,
категорию
allowing us to
и
provide clients with
предоставлять
the necessary
клиентам необходимую
information without
информацию
relying
без
on
вот
how the
этой вот,
agent perceives it,
без того, как
as
это
this
видит
information
оператор,
does
потому
not
что эта
change from
информация, она
request to
никак не меняется
request.
от обращения к обращению.
And after that,
Потом это
А время
повторное.
требует,
And all
правильно
this
я
takes
понимаю,
time,
да?
and
Да,
call
а
queues
времени
start
Бывает
filling up,
очередь,
especially
особенно во
during
время
technical
аварии.
outages.
Да, плюс это повторное
yes, and this has been
обращение
a
наших
recurring
абонентов,
issue, repeated inquiries from our
к которым
subscribers.
некоторые
They
не то что
contact us not
обращались
only
только
because their
потому, что у
problems
них
haven't been
задача не
resolved,
решена, что
which is a
является,
very
что как будто
important
бы
point,
является
but
критически
also because many requests
важной
come
точкой,
directly from the
но
agents
и это
themselves.
просьбы
They say
самих
things like,
операторов: вы нам
please call
перезвоните
us back,
еще,
or call us back
перезвоните
in
нам,
10
пожалуйста,
minutes.
через 10 минут. То есть даже вот такие вот вещи в
I
нашем
need to
контакт-центре
emphasize that
встречались.
such instances
И
are common in our
вот
contact
если
center.
смотреть просто
If you only look
верхнеуровнево,
at the
все
top
выглядело
level,
вроде как
everything
ничего.
appears to be
Информация в
fine.
CRM есть,
It
какой-то там
seems that we have
классификатор
proper
есть.
information
А когда
flow,
выходишь
classifiers are
вне,
on
когда
in the
вот
CRM,
сталкиваешься с реальными
but when you
кейсами,
delve into the
то
details
все
and encounter
совершенно
real cases,
по-другому
things appear quite
считывается, и ты
different.
понимаешь, что все нужно причесывать, все везде нужно прибираться,
It
что
becomes clear that
нужно
everything
точно,
needs to be
точно нужна
organized and
автоматизация,
streamlined.
точно
That
нужны
is why we definitely
другой
need
уровень квалификации
automation, a
операторов,
higher level of
и
agent
точно нам нужна
qualification,
какая-то
and some form of
стандартизация.
Опять же,
standardization.
мы можем переложить, скажем, чтобы
Once
также,
again, we can
например,
shift,
операторы
say, like an
исключить
agent, to
выгорание,
prevent
вот,
burnout and
первичное,
perhaps
вот это, как
this
сказать,
initial contact with the
касание с
client,
клиентом,
right?
да,
Especially during
особенно
those
в такие
moments
минуты,
when nothing
когда не
seems to
работает
work, then
ничего,
of course
то,
you
конечно,
can
можно
hear a lot
выслушать
of
много
interesting
всего
things
интересного о
about
себе, о
yourself,
компании,
about
обо
the
всех нас
company,
лицах, в том
and about
числе и о
everyone in the
руководстве, и
world,
обо всех нас
including
лицах.
management
И
and
вот
everyone
Александр,
else.
ты не пугай наших
And don't
будущих
scare our
слушателей,
future
правильно?
listeners,
Мы
but we
знаем, что
understand
такие
that such
ситуации бывают,
situations
когда не
happen.
работает
Клиенты,
всё вообще. Но обычно клиенты считают, что такого не бывает, поэтому мы вырежем это.
That's exactly the idea I
я
came
как
up
раз и
with,
предлагаю,
that we can hand over
да,
some of this to
я как раз
automation
и
to
предлагаю
avoid
как раз тот
conflicts on the
момент,
line.
что
It will
значит, мы
help
можем
prevent such situations
переложить
because the service
это
process
все на
and the way
автоматику.
information is
Именно вот эти
presented
вот
will
самые
improve.
простые случаи, может
These
быть,
are very
потом
simple
перейдут с некоторым
cases,
усложнением
maybe
дальше,
with some
потому
more
что
complex letters,
боты тоже
because
учатся
AI
и
agents also
читают больше
learn.
CRM,
They
и вот
read the
везде все в
CRM,
порядке,
various
они
internal
съедают все и
regulations.
вполне себе
They
в
absorb all
состоянии
that,
и
and they're quite
обучаться.
capable
Но
of
вот,
learning.
а у меня такой
But here comes the
вопрос, может быть,
question.
сейчас еще не
It
совсем
might not be
очевидно, но,
entirely
может быть, уже
clear
какой-то
yet, but
горизонт
maybe
понятен
there's already
относительно
some
того,
sense of
а
what
вообще
percentage of the
какой процент
operational part of the contact
автоматизации
center could be automated.
могло бы покрыть операционную часть контакт-центра. Ну, допустим, там вот
Ну, или
сейчас
сколько вы
Or how
уже
much have you
покрыли?
covered so
10,
far?
10,
20, 30. У нас на
20,
самом деле есть
30?
такие, ну,
And
уже
yes, we
расчеты,
actually
что,
have
например,
some
какой-то в состоянии
calculations.
покрывать
For
до
example, a
50%
solution like Apiphonica
автоматизации.
is capable of covering up to
Автоматизировать процесс
60% of
внутри
processes in the
контакт-центра. И
contact
вот
center through
ну,
automation.
перспективы
So,
такие.
well,
И вот как
those are the
Sarkor это видит?
prospects.
У
And how
себя
does
какие
Sarkor
вещи
see
можно
this for
положить на
themselves?
автоматизацию,
What
сколько бы
things
это
can be
было
automated?
в
How much would
размерах?
that be in scale?
About 60%. It's
60%
not
она для
it's
нас
not achieved
еще
yet, not for us. But it's probably more on our side, because any automation requires clear processes inside the company, in the CRM, since automation needs very clear and transparent identification of the call, of the subscriber. And then, of course, we'll be able to increase that percentage. Now, as I already mentioned, the majority of inquiries are typical. What's my balance? I have a negative balance. The internet isn't working. There's some kind of line outage. And all these calls, given that we know who's calling us, so it's not just someone's neighbor, but the actual subscriber, and we've identified them, we can now automate about 40% of such calls in our center.
40% автоматизации у нас в контакт-центре реализовано сейчас.
хороший, мне кажется,
A
показатель.
good indicator,
А
I think.
удалось
And
ли
were
вот,
you able to,
ну, как
as
мы
we
обсуждали,
discussed,
да, то есть,
right?
наверное, основной
So
задачей на моменте
probably the
старта
main
было
task at
убрать
the
вот эти
start
вот
was to eliminate
ситуации,
those
когда
situations
возникает
where a
большое
sudden spike in
количество
unscheduled calls happens and the
незапланированных
queue
звонков
grows,
и
right?
растет очередь, да, соответственно, и клиенты, которые с
So, clients
какими-то
with real
проблемами
problems that
приходят
need
решать,
solving get stuck in line
висят на
together with those
очереди
who just need a
вместе с
simple
теми,
notification.
кому можно дать простую нотификацию. Да, соответственно, удалось
So,
ли
have you managed to
решить эту
resolve the
ситуацию,
situation at
хотя бы
least partially
частично, ну
or
или
not
не
at all?
частично?
На самом деле
In
решение
fact, the
пришло
solution
вообще
didn't
к
come
нам
to us right
сразу,
away,
и, наверное,
and
это
this is
такое
probably an interim
промежуточное
solution for
решение
now.
пока что.
Or,
А,
well, a correct one. And thankfully,
Стало
over time, when you work with
правильно и
automation, with
хорошо, и
AI
слава богу,
agents,
то, что
you
со
realize it's
временем,
not
когда
always a
ты
simple
там
scenario.
работаешь
You
вот
start to
с
complicate
автоматизацией,
things,
с
writing
ботами,
different branches
понимаешь,
for
то,
it.
что это не всегда там простой сценарий, там,
And
ты
now, when a
начинаешь
major
усложнять,
situation
писать
happens,
разные ветки
we've
его.
found the only
И
effective approach for
вот
us
сейчас,
is to
когда
redirect
пиковая вот
all
такая
those
история
inquiries,
случается,
the ones
мы для
just about
себя
informing
увидели единственное
subscribers,
вариант
into
решения —
a separate
это
branch and close
заворачивать все
them,
обращения,
meaning
информируя
they
наших
don't go to a
абонентов
live agent.
просто в отдельную ветку и
It's not
закрывать ее.
really
То есть она
fashionable
не
anymore
уходит
to
на
tell
оператора.
clients how many minutes
Как
they have to wait on the
бы сейчас
line.
не модно
We
ждать,
also don't want to do
говорить
that.
клиентам о том,
Agents
сколько мы
have an
будем
internal
ждать времени.
benchmark.
Мы тоже не
They aim
хотим
to
об этом
respond
сообщать.
within 20
У
seconds,
операторов
and
есть
they stick to it.
бенчмарк такой, то, что они должны в течение 20 секунд ответить, они к нему стремятся. Вот,
But telling,
но
say, 17,000 people during an outage,
рассказывать всем
please
там
wait, we're
17
in an
тысяч
emergency,
звонков о том,
that's
что у нас
probably not the
авария,
best approach.
подождите,
So now all those
пожалуйста,
calls go
наверное,
into a separate
неправильный кейс.
branch, and the
И
AI
сейчас все
agent
эти
simply
звонки у
closes
нас
them.
ходят в отдельную ветку, и робот их просто закрывает, а
Meanwhile,
операторы
live
обслуживают
agents are available for other
других
callers,
людей, и
and their customer
их
journey doesn't
клиентский путь
suffer
от этого не становится
because there are
негативным. То
people
есть те же
calling with
звонки
completely different
совершенно с
needs.
другими задачами,
Tell me about the
потребностями,
rates.
там,
I
скажите о
want to
тарифах,
connect.
я хочу
And on such
подключиться. И
days,
все
they
эти
couldn't
звонки
get through
раньше
to
вот
us
в те дни
before.
прорваться к нам не могли. А сейчас мы в
But
спокойном
now,
режиме
the contact
продолжаем,
center keeps
контакт-центр
working
спокойно
calmly.
продолжает работать.
То есть я
Ну,
тут,
то есть,
я тут
получается, те,
добавлю.
кому помочь
Да.
невозможно. Ну,
I'll add to that.
Мы
We had to
научились
learn to
разделять,
separate
разделять,
these
да?
two streams of calls.
научились
So
разделять
yes, we did that.
звонков, и если
If we
звонок,
understand that the
мы
call is from a
понимаем, что
client on the
звонок от
network who's
клиента,
experiencing an
у
outage,
которого авария,
we give them
то
a
мы ему
message
отдаем
that it's a
сообщение о том,
known
что у него авария.
outage.
Но если параллельно звонит клиенту, у которого нету на сети
But if
аварии,
a
и у
client
него
calls
тоже
at the
есть
same time and they're not
то,
affected,
соответственно, этот
and we
звонок
can
идет по
see that
другой
from the
ветке, и мы
CRM,
предоставляем
then that
все
call
другие
goes through a
ответы
different
или сразу
branch,
направляем
and
к
we
оператору.
provide a
Таким
completely
образом,
different
мы и
response or
помогаем
immediately route
организации
them to a live
снять
agent.
нагрузку вот эту пиковую по аварии, и в том числе
In this way,
не сообщать
automation
всем
helps us
остальным
reduce
о
the
том, что
load caused
происходит
by the
авария.
outage
И
peak, and
стандартные
at the same
подходы. То
time,
есть мне так
we
кажется,
don't
это
inform
хорошо сделать
unaffected
сегодня.
clients
То есть
about the
мы
outage.
смогли
We
сразу
continue serving them as
выключить
usual.
и сняли
I think
гигантскую
that's quite a
нагрузку при
significant
каких-то
achievement.
инцидентах с колл-центра, и при всем при
We
этом
managed to kill
оставляем
two birds with one
абонентов,
stone.
которые не
We eased
подвергаются
the pressure on the call center during
техническим
incidents,
инцидентам,
and at the same
предоставляем им
time, we
нужный
maintained the service
уровень
level and proper
обслуживания
handling for subscribers who aren't
проблем
affected,
звонков при
giving them
входе
the
информации.
support and
Мне
information
кажется,
they
это отличное
need.
решение было.
I think this is an excellent
Спасибо
solution.
большое, что
Yes.
напомнил,
Pavel,
потому
thank you
что
very much for
действительно,
bringing that up.
когда
Because 6 months
там
ago,
полгода
we
назад
had
не
no
было у нас
automation, we were
никакой
just getting
автоматизации,
started,
там только
and the
начинали мы,
IVR was
а
informing
я
100% of callers
100%
that there was a network
звонящих
outage.
сообщал о том, то, что у нас авария. И
Even
даже
if, say, a
звонит
subscriber was
абонент, он
calling
хочет
just to connect their
подключить
apartment,
свою
they would
квартиру,
still get the
и наш
default
диспорт
response.
начинался с того, что
It would start
извините,
with,
несколько
sorry, it
часов
will take several
требуется
hours to resolve
решение
our emergency
нашей
network issue.
аварийной сети. То сейчас,
So
да,
now,
сейчас эти
yes,
абоненты
these
проходят по
subscribers go down
своему
their own
пути,
path and no longer
сталкиваются
encounter that
с этим
message.
информированием,
And this kind of
и вот
targeted
это вот
messaging creates a
направленное
completely
информирование,
different
оно
customer
формирует
journey,
совершенно другой
starting from the
клиентский
very
путь,
first
начиная с первого
contact with the
контакта с
company.
компанией.
Инесса, вот смотри,
Inessa,
мы
look,
часто
we
общаемся
often
с
speak with
руководителями
call center
колл-центров,
managers,
с
commercial
коммерческими
directors, and
директорами,
very often we
и
hear some skepticism about the
очень часто
idea
мы
that
слышим
automation
скепсис
reduces the
по
number of
поводу
people.
того, что любая автоматизация снижает количество людей.
And for a call center manager, well,
Руководитель
of course,
колл-центра,
the number of
ну,
people is
конечно,
kind of a
количество
symbol of
людей — это некий
influence, a
power,
certain status within
некий
the
грейд в
company.
компании,
It partly
некий
reflects how
ресурс,
important this
благодаря
function
которому
is.
отчасти описывается важность этой функции. Для вас лично, как вы смогли
For you personally,
работать с
how did did you approach
этой
this topic?
тематикой.
Was
Было
it
ли
a
для вас это
challenge for you,
проблемой,
or
или вы
did you
изначально
initially
не видели
not
для
see
себя такой
automation
угрозы
as a
автоматизации,
threat
что сейчас
that
прям
AI would come and
искусственный
just
интеллект
replace people
меняют
with machines?
людей на роботов?
А,
I am
Всё
all
за
for automation.
автоматизацию. Я
I
считаю,
believe
что
that
роботы — это
robots are a
добро.
good thing. And I believe that everything we can do without human involvement, without any subjectivity, without knowing which side of the bed someone woke up on and how things are going in their family, well, I am always for automation. Plus, right now, for example, my contact center manager and several other employees, they understand what a script is, they know how a voice bot is built, they understand what branches can exist and how they are resolved. So what kind of logging occurs within the CRM system? It seems like the market value of such people in the labor market significantly increases. And just a contact center manager who will talk about CSAT, what it should be, what the benchmark for SLA response is, and so on, right? That's probably not enough anymore. And a contact center manager who can automate processes, I think any operator, any bank will take them with open arms because they already have this experience. And my managers, everyone who works, all my colleagues, they are happy to work on new products. We will continue to automate processes not only within the contact center.
Do employees feel any jealousy? They understand that technologies, robots, and bots are coming to the contact center, which means they might be thinking about replacing us. We're not talking about when the provider offers its technologies. It's not about layoffs as such. It's about process optimization, but everyone understands it differently, especially those on the ground who work directly with clients. Here you see, they automated 40%. So what are we going to do? This kind of rotation is happening now with the new realities, rotation of employees within the department. How can they, maybe be motivated to continue working further? How does it happen in Sarkor? We are not necessarily talking about layoffs.
Well, actually, with the start of the automation journey within Sarkor, we saw that our CRM seems to be both comprehensive and custom-built, tailored for all the needs of Sarkor, but initially, the first opinion that our CRM can do everything, knows everything, and is transparent turned out to be fundamentally incorrect. And the introduction, when we started automation, we realized that our CRM requires very significant improvements. This is the first such point, when we understood what improvements were needed. Making one improvement led to a second, third, and so on. And even the CRM that was there 6 months ago and the one now are two different systems that it has changed so much that now, when calling the agent, you no longer need to prove to the person that they really have some expertise. That now, before, they would say, "Please hold for 2 minutes." I used to run to the manager, run to the second-line agent. Our CRM is now refined to such an extent that the majority, the greater part of the information, is visible to the agent right in the first window, and they are able to provide quite expert consultation to our subscriber who called. The belief that a person is communicating with an expert usually creates a completely different assessment of the call center agent's level, and subscribers now give much higher ratings to our agents. That is, they enjoy interacting with qualified personnel. And this is all thanks, among other things, to the improvements in the CRM system. That's the first point. That is, the situation with inquiries also allowed us to create the correct branches within the CRM with information that is displayed when a subscriber calls. Here, in this rotation, agents are not afraid of automation at all. They are ready for any changes, to be honest. Well, they perceive any changes very positively. All agents smoothly transition from one department to another. And generally, the first person they come to when we have a vacancy is always me. So, A vacancy appears, whether it's a product manager, which seems like a completely different person, or a B2B enterprise salesperson is needed, for example. In any case, they will always come to my employees, to the contact center agents, to me, and ask if you have someone who is ready to look in another direction. And therefore, there are no risks for agents with the implementation of automation at all. And moreover, as a rule, specialists from the contact center who move to other departments have much higher qualifications, and their integration into positions, their onboarding into new roles is not exactly quick. As a rule, they train the remaining staff who already work there on some things that are in our billing, in our CRM system, and they also promote automation to other departments. That's really great.
You know, Inessa, now I understand for myself. She says some very important things, I think. You know, colleagues, when we are talking about voicebot, right? And this actually disciplines the whole process, it turns out. That is, if a large company knew some time ago that they had a unique, absolutely excellent, completely wonderful CRM system, they kind of, when the bot shows them some points where they could tweak a little, refine the system, and we then begin to improve the process overall, because one way or another, situations arise where we need to maintain efficiency and at the same time not overturn the process itself. And it seems to me that when we discipline the process in this way, we provide ourselves with a somewhat more stable platform that allows us to save, yes, work efficiently with personnel, work efficiently with internal systems, well, CRM, ERP, and so on. And this acts as an interesting trigger for a large company, which immediately allows for the adjustment of all other processes that are somehow connected to the main contact center process. And you know, I would like to go back a little now so that Inessa can, let's say, catch her breath from our questioning. And to ask Pavel, how did we even manage to approach Sarkor and convince them, a huge company, to take on the development of our product? Where did we even start? How did we come to Sarkor at all?
In fact, we had quite a lot of experience working with telecom companies. We initially understood well the challenges of large call centers and telecom operators. Initially, at the beginning of our work with Sarkor, we theoretically understood the problems in the market, such as those faced by internet providers and large contact centers. So, in theory, we probably already had these confirmations. We understood what problems we would encounter. We needed to form a certain hypothesis together with colleagues, convince them to give us a chance to try it, and at least conduct a pilot test to show that there is something to work on and automate. And of course, a big thank you to the colleagues from Sarkor for trusting in our expertise in our first trial step and allowing us to work together with them with their contact center, with the inquiries that are there, to sort out some inquiries, right? There to look at the internal workings, maybe to some extent, apply our expertise, which an outside perspective, I think, is also quite useful. And through joint work, find certain points that can provide the maximum effect and the greatest value from the product. That is, we followed our standard process. In other words, we did not try to automate any complex multi-step stages of communication with clients. We took what is most frequently repeated, most easily automated, and what puts the greatest load on the call center. So it was clear that these are peak loads: marketing campaigns, some accidents, some incidents. That is, these are things that immediately heavily load the call center. but for a short period of time. Well, conditionally small, from a few hours to maybe a day, while an incident is being resolved, or during a period like Black Friday or New Year discounts. And this, in my opinion, is exactly what is easiest to take as the first stage of automation.
Probably we have reached a very interesting question about how we established interaction with Sarkor. Well, for us, it was a somewhat understandable project because, as Pavel said, we had previously worked with a large number of call centers, worked with telecom operators, with internet providers, but with Sarkor, we had not worked with the Uzbek language. This was a big challenge, as I understand, in ESA. And for the call center, it is a challenge because the service is conducted in two languages and predominantly in Uzbek.
Абсолютно так, да, причем
Absolutely.
доля узбекского
Yes, and the
языка она
share of the
растет,
Uzbek language is
становится
growing.
более
It is
популярным.
becoming more and more
И там
popular.
год
A
назад
year
это было
ago, 70%
70%
of
обращений на
inquiries were in
узбекском
Uzbek.
языке, сейчас
Now
доходит
it
до
reaches 85,
85-90%.
90%.
То есть
So there
русского
is
языка
very, very little
очень-очень мало,
Russian.
да.
Yes.
Well, and when we started, I remember the partnership cooperation with Sarkor. We immediately discussed that we were ready to share our expertise in technology in the field of developed automation examples. But we need partnership help from Sarkor, and we entered this project as partners, you could say, because well, the dialogue design in the Uzbek language was carried out by Sarkor employees. Yes, they were not dialogue designers at that time, and accordingly, our dialogue designers worked in pairs with call center employees. Quality control, I think, if I remember correctly, was present there. So, the guys first created the case in Russian, then adapted it to Uzbek, and only after that rewrote it completely in Uzbek.
Returning to Konstantin's question about the fear of line staff regarding automation, it seems to me, Inessa correctly said that for us it's the opposite. More precisely, in Sarkor, people appeared in the call center who became very involved in this project, who are our ambassadors, who started helping us implement all of this. And initially, it was just a translation from Russian to Uzbek. Then, more complex tasks. Then we also developed certain competencies within Sarkor, people who can administer these voice assistants within Sarkor. And today, we have already achieved a result where there are competencies within the company that can independently create new scenarios, launch them, test them, and essentially not involve specialists from Apophonica for the launch. If we don't consider some very complex cases, because today Sarkor is already trying to handle even more complex cases, where we still assist them at the third and engineering support level. But despite all this, Sarkor can now not only manage their own scenarios that we launched, but also create new ones. And I know that in the past 6 months, several new scenarios have been launched entirely independently by Sarkor. So for us, it's sometimes a surprise when a new scenario appears in Sarkor's personal account that we hadn't even heard of, and colleagues tell us that it works. It just needs a little help, like tightening a screw to get it fully operational. Therefore, there are people in the line staff, in the call center, who have become involved in this process, and today their competencies and knowledge have significantly increased their market value. That is, they are no longer just agents or call center employees, but people who have not only heard about automation, but have worked with it and know how to do it from the inside with their own hands. And that is already much more valuable than just answering calls. This is the internal competence of a person who knows automation from the inside.
And how does it happen with us? Look, we have Russian and Uzbek languages in Uzbekistan. Well, there are no problems with Russian. It's quite well read. I mean, Russian language is fully represented in digital format. And the Uzbek language, what is it based on? What research or what technology are we using to understand that it will work for Sarkor in the most acceptable format?
Well, here probably I can answer this question about language technologically. When building a voice assistant, we use a multi-level intent recognition model, as it's called. we have several simultaneous models working, starting from direct match, where we set keywords and expect the recognition system to recognize these keywords up to intent recognition. And in case, roughly speaking, neither the first nor the other system gives the desired result, we use LLM model, specifically the OpenAI model.
Модель OpenAI.
Currently, GPT 3.5 is the main model used for robots. It allows us to understand not specific words but meanings. And it turns out that, yes, the quality of Uzbek language recognition today is not the highest and not the most accurate. But for intent and LLM models, it's not important to understand words exactly. 80% recognition accuracy is enough to understand a person's intention. And thus, it is not very important which language is used. The main thing is that the recognition model we use provides accuracy of at least 75 to 80%. And if the recognition accuracy is like that, overall, the assistant understands more than 95% of cases.
Roughly speaking, it looks like this. A client calls and starts, for example, speaking in Russian. And how does the AI react to this?
This is a slightly different technology, Konstantin. If a client speaks Russian and then switches to Uzbek, it's not a question of AI, but of parallel recognition in two languages and switching the model from one language to another. In essence, in most cases, this is solved with a simple IVR. 90% of all our clients do not abandon the classic method. If you want to speak Russian, press 2. If you want to speak English, press 1. If you want to speak Uzbek, just continue speaking Bey Charnda.
Sounds so native.
But in our case, you don't have to press anything. You can just say the language you prefer to read in. Just keep the dialogue going.
You are starting to speak, right? You are starting to speak in Russian, yes? Or are you starting in
Ines had
Uzbek?
told us that 85% of people use Uzbek, so Uzbek is the priority model. And in case of some fallbacks, we use the definition Uzbek Russian. In the Uzbek language, there is a slightly different problem because there are many borrowed words, and technological words in the field of the internet are, well, generally new for the Uzbek language. Here, therefore, it turns out to be a kind of mix of a pure Uzbek language model supplemented with Russian words. And today we are working in such a way that we took the Uzbek model, added a number of Russian words to it so that the model, well, doesn't switch between languages, understands that it is still the Uzbek language with the inclusion of technological words from Russian or English. Router is not really a Russian word, actually.
I see, Inessa, the English language is also in use, right? In the service of...
It is in use, yes, in servicing, but usually it is less than 1% of calls. So it exists, but there is little of it.
And I talked about the technology, how it works, but in reality, how do you assess the level of understanding of the Uzbek language by the bot at Sarkor? And are there often confusions with other languages?
The one we have working in Sarkor quite clearly distinguishes which language is being spoken to it. So, we practically don't have any errors. In reality, people can communicate in both Russian and Uzbek. This can definitely be encountered if you listen to the calls, and the error rate is around 5%. We consider this to be more about borrowed words, or the person themselves switches from one language to another. We listen to some of the calls, and some of the calls we just review, checking how they go through the branches. We see that the effectiveness of the call, the dialogue, whether in the Russian branch or the Uzbek branch, is absolutely the same. We really didn't learn this right away. At first, we made many mistakes. We realized that our branches were breaking or returning incorrectly. But then when we realized that a person can say the same word differently, and that responses can be completely unexpected. For example, to the question, "How are you?" component placement. They might answer good, or they might draw out an interjection or mutter something. It's just a person. Or maybe there's a child screaming in the background. That is all these different things. When we already understood that they happen, our branches go in both Russian and Uzbek in similar way. Absolutely identical. By the way, we don't have a branch in English.
English goes nowhere.
Directly to the agent.
Why? Yes, nothing dies with us.
It goes directly to the agent. Yes. So if we don't understand which language to speak with them, it immediately gets routed to the agent.
Inessa's words once again confirm that these iterations of training our voice assistant are working, because often clients expect a miracle from the first activation. After that, as soon as we launch the project, we try to assure that no, this model is trainable. It is self-learning. It is trainable through the recordings we make, through the recordings we initially received, through the deep and detailed work of the dialogue designer and call center specialists who are directly involved in this process. And after some time, after several iterations, we refine the system, and the conversion and improvement in recognition change very, very significantly and noticeably. So, magic doesn't happen from the first calls, but after a month or two of detailed work on projects with active involvement of the client and their employees, results are achieved, and conversion increases to the level we initially discussed at the project launch. It is very important for the client to initially understand that, yes, magic will not happen with the first calls, especially if the client has no recordings, no scripts, and if there is complete chaos in the call center, we cannot come and perform a miracle. But by gathering this information and collecting real-life calls, analyzing them, after some time, we can achieve a fairly high conversion rate and show that the result is worth the money and time spent to do this.
Yes, I also remember now when I was talking about our company's voice bot. I showed this first scenario model. Back then, it was minimal. We had just completed the integration. And I looked at this script, amazed, how short and simple it is. I mean, it seems to me now that this script is practically not viable, that it will process. But starting with something simple is definitely the right path, which then allows you to offer the voice bot the right solutions and, accordingly, provide quality service to the client. Exactly. Without the voice bot, we wouldn't have seen how many shortcomings we have internally, and how much we were able to improve both here and there thanks to it. But it seems to me that you did it quite quickly, right? Even though we were, of course, very involved and interested in improving the quality of service for our clients.
That is, by implementing automation, we also conducted an additional audit from the call center's side of the existing processes together and fine-tuned not only the AI assistance processes, but also the overall service operations. Yes, I think that's quite a good result.
Yes, I agree.
I would like to move on, perhaps a little, to another topic. And maybe now it has become clear regarding the results of the bot's work. After all, you probably continue to maintain reporting, but on certain metrics that you have to show to your management, apparently. Maybe it's still a bit too early to talk about this in detail, since the testing might still be ongoing. And as for this summary, well, I'm wondering, can the bot's effectiveness already be seen in the contact center's performance metrics in some way? Or is it still too early to draw any clear conclusions about that?
No, we are now already seeing quite good results after implementing the voice bot. Let's talk about the top-level metrics, because they really allow for a lot of in-depth analysis and give us a clear picture of what's happening in the contact center. And as a side effect, for example, one very positive and somewhat unexpected side effect the voice bot gave us when we first implemented it was that we discovered only about 10% of our subscribers actually had correct and up-to-date contact information in our system. Yes, and everything like that. This is just a byproduct that emerged thanks to the bot. It provided us with so much information about how incorrectly these data are entered into the wrong fields, and that there is no standardization within the CRM filling process. And so, in 10% of the calls, the voice bot only found out who was calling. We cleaned up the CRM. Now, each agent's task is to update the contact information. Agents have a big special button for this, and there's an alarm to remind them not to forget to update this information. Well, because you just can't keep a very large number of points in focus all the time. The ones an agent has to go through during each call. Like, I need to ask the first, the second, the third, and the 10th thing. We solved this with alarms. Here's a red alarm, it needs to be closed. Another one, and another. And now our identification is already above 40%. So this is the result we achieved in 3 months. That is, the update. Out of 10% of our subscriber base, we now have more than 40% updated. This means that we can reach these people through different contact points. We can communicate with them through various channels. And this is very good for us, and it significantly reduces our expenses. For example, on some advertising mailings, on upselling these clients, on updating equipment. Because we can now reach them not only through SMS, we have Telegram or more channels. And for example, they now have a personal account. All of this, in essence, was highlighted by the voice bot. And if we just talk about metrics, well, let's talk about something simple. The most important thing that triggers all subscribers, all users. This is exactly what we started our dialogue with. You have to wait on the line for another 40 seconds. 2 more minutes left, another 6. Please wait. Our average wait time on the line used to be 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It seems like not very much. But we remember that operators had a KPI for the number of calls. The more times they answered, the more they earned. So 2 minutes and 20 seconds seemed like a lot, even with such a KPI. Now our subscribers who call us wait on the line for less than a minute. On average, depending on the load, the waiting time on the line is from 40 seconds to a minute. Our subscribers themselves say that we respond faster than others, and they really like that the contact center actually answers calls. The agent's rating increased from 4.59. It was 4.6. Now it is 4.85. That is, this is an automatic rating. This is how the subscriber rates our agents. And 4.85 is definitely a good result, which we love that agents' availability has increased. So before, our availability was at 70%. Now it's 85%, meaning we're able to answer 85% of all calls. And I'll remind you, this is an average figure, which also includes those incidents that might account for the remaining 10, 15, or even 20%. Therefore, it seems to us that now, when contacting our call center, our users have a very positive customer experience. And here is another important point. We all understand that some people know how to sell, can, and want to. Some have that inner star, the spark of a salesperson, and some do not. Some are more meticulous, introverted techies. The same goes for contact center employees. We now understand, as we have already mentioned, the purpose with which a subscriber or new user comes to us, and calls from new subscribers go to a branch. Let's call it sales. And there we have people, operators, who have that, the spark of a salesperson, and our conversion from a new application to a already connected client has increased from 30%. And for us, that's really great. From 30 to 65, 65 to 67. So now we don't just say, yes, we have rates, and hang up. Now we really guide them with the help of the 8th, with the right branch, to connection. And they become our subscribers much more effectively, twice as much.
What scripts are you currently using for processing voice bots? How many scripts?
We have one main scenario. Within this scenario, there are several branches. There is a branch subscriber identified, subscriber not identified. Well, obviously, there are also Russian and Uzbek divisions. And if the subscriber is identified, then we tell them about their balance status, or we understand that it is not working and recommend that they top up their account if that is the issue. Or we tell him that there is some incident on his line, inform him that he has an outage. Or if he has some other question, he is transferred to an agent. If we are unable to resolve this issue, as we don't have such a branch yet, then he is transferred to an agent, and the branch with unidentified subscribers. And then there are also sales, like connecting new services, changing the tariff, all that kind of thing, contracts. And then there's the branch for unidentified subscribers. There basically we can ask if they're our subscriber and try to identify them using artificial intelligence. Or we just don't try to identify the client at all. We either send the client to the sales branch if they want to connect or sign up for some services, or we route the client to a live agent. That's the main scenario. But when a client calls the contact center, it feels like there should be just one scenario. It just needs to be multi-level.
In ESSA, I remember we also conducted experiments on hiring employees for posting advertisements. This is a completely standalone scenario with which we conducted experiments. It is not related to service, but it is related to hiring personnel. Can you tell us if it is still active and what the results are?
The script is alive? Yes. What are the challenges we face? Since we have an agency channel, these are agents who run around apartments or distribute flyers. It's a channel that constantly requires recruitment, bulk hiring. And what is the difficulty there? The fact that there are HR department employees who work there from Monday to Friday, from 9 to 6. But hiring in such channels occurs under a civil law contract, and it starts, so to speak, from 16 years old. And often, many are not eager to call someone, considering whether the employee on the other side is working now, whether it is their working time or not. And here we have a scenario that is related to recruitment, allowing us to schedule interviews in a table, in a Google spreadsheet, during non-working hours of HR, invite people for interviews, and immediately record them. So, essentially, we don't even process this information later. It is already in our tables. We just continue working with the candidates who have signed up in that table. Besides that, we launched scenarios to inform our subscribers. We informed them about changes to the contract terms. Then we launched a scenario to inform clients that they had additional TV services included in their contract. And we even took some measurements on it, so it wasn't a simple scenario. We had questions like, did you know about this or not? What do you like about it? What don't you like? Such a complex scenario. We called 600 of our clients. Well, it was a sufficient sample for us to draw conclusions on how to proceed with marketing activities. So the bot is helping us with these kinds of tasks now as well. And this particular scenario helped us realize that some of our clients weren't just uninterested in one of the services. They actually had no idea that, as it turns out, they were even paying for it. Why? Because it's included in the main service package. And from there, we already started discussions with our partners about how to promote it. What else? We also had upsell scenarios. We launched, I think, everything. That's it.
These options, the use cases for an AI assistant, go far beyond just handling incoming clients. Of course, that remains the biggest and most demanding task, taking up the most resources and requiring the most attention. But besides that, there are many areas within the company where automation can be implemented using it, including channels, as Inessa mentioned, Sales, upselling, informing. All of this together probably gives a very positive response regarding the company's brand and its perception in the market. That is, the company hires personnel in a timely manner. The company promptly takes care of clients and informs them that they are paying but not using something, and so on and so on. That is, our cooperation is much broader than just handling incoming calls. Yes, somewhere these are just one-time experiments. Somewhere these are companies that can scale down from time to time depending on the need for some kind of information or upsell. But there are quite a lot of scenarios.
Yes, and of course, I would like to add that since we are quite a large provider, our database is extensive, and sometimes we need to inform a large portion of our database simultaneously. And it's unrealistic to recruit and train enough people who will call someone, say something, understanding whom they are calling, how they are calling, and that they will provide sufficiently qualified consultation. A voice bot will replace an entire regiment of such qualified people.
Well, in general, despite the fact that Inessa said at the beginning of our conversation that they are not yet sure if they can automate 60% of the entire process, it seems to me that by the end of the conversation, there is quite a desire to continue developing this further. And here's another point I have. Inessa, you communicate within, well, your I don't know, well, community, right? Well, leaders of other companies, also large ones. What would you advise them so that companies, well, move towards innovation, so they start implementing? They are all quite conservative. It's very difficult to come into a big company, kick the door open, and say, here we have a voice bot. It does 60% of everything you need. So you already have some experience. What would you advise such companies or leaders? I know that you are already an ambassador. Yes, you have already talked about voice bots, about their effectiveness. But in a personal meeting with someone, businesslike, I mean, of course.
I understand, right? It's very accurately noted. Companies are very conservative and often believe that only a person can best serve the subscriber. Here, the question is still about business solutions. If any company looks at what reviews its users, its current subscribers leave, how often they come, and how quickly the company can solve the tasks they came with. And now, as I see from the reviews, one of the reasons our subscribers stay with us is the fast and quality service. And specifically about our company, subscribers say that we have one of the best contact centers right now. And here is the question of changing the paradigm. If you currently have people working and you are not receiving good reviews, isn't it time to change this behavior paradigm? And, of course, there is also the question of business decisions. If a client calls us and we cannot respond competently or pick up the phone on time, there is a very high chance that this client will leave. This client should simply be multiplied by money. And there can be such clients in a day. Yes, as I said, 17,000 can call. And if you multiply by the cost of money, it results in a very significant revenue loss for the company. And it seems that investment in automation here not only looks justifiable, but also correct from the perspective of customer experience. Therefore, I spoke with the business in terms of numbers, explaining that the investment in automation is quite insignificant compared to the number of solutions and tasks it addresses. If you translate it into money, the case pays off in just the first month.
Such a provocative question a bit later regarding the payback period, perhaps. Look, Inessa, so we have discussed almost everything probably that we wanted to discuss. To your market colleagues, basically to everyone who is considering the process of automation within their call center or within their service. In three sentences, how would you formulate the two or three main things, in your opinion, that ensure the success of the automation process?
So, what are the success metrics?
Well, not as success metrics, probably, but what would you consider the most important in a project, from thinking about what to automate to choosing a specific provider or technology to achieving financial results? What are the three main aspects you would pay special attention to when starting and implementing the service automation process?
The first clear signal for me to automate is the presence of standard requests. If they are more than 40%, starting from 35 to 40, this threshold begins. If the requests are the same, they definitely need and can be automated. If we automate such a volume of requests, it seems like we can optimize the same amount in terms of service. This is kind of the first, most striking point. Second, automation is still about scale. If there are some large tasks, if there are people to work with, then it is definitely difficult to do it manually. And any big task is always through automation. Otherwise, you will stretch any big task over weeks and months for its implementation. Automation can do it in a day or two. Well, I mean, along with writing and testing scripts. Yes. And probably the third thing is always about money. Money is our subscribers. Each of our subscribers, well, so to speak, let's say they cost us some dollars. And if we used to understand that we could serve 200 subscribers in a day, and now with automation, we can serve or contact 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers in a day, then we need to multiply that money by the number of contacts with our subscribers. And then probably the case starts to add up and come together very quickly.
Money, that's great, since we started talking about money. So I have a tricky question, probably. I won't ask to dive deep into profit and loss, but in Uzbekistan, a call center specialist costs around 250 USA dollars per month at most. And this is probably one of the lowest markets we are working in today. In your opinion, in your company, does artificial intelligence pay off with such low personnel costs?
$250 for us, that's really not much. You calculated $250. That seems very little. Look, first of all, it's unlikely that a contact center specialist costs $250. Most likely, they cost more, because there are very clear requirements for a contact center specialist. This includes articulate speech and knowledge of several languages, at least that. You can hire without requirements, and indeed, there are companies that do that. In our company, you can't just become a contact center agent like that. But we do pay more, of course. And here, in Uzbekistan, it's generally considered that labor is very cheap. And it seems like there is a lot of labor. The question is, what kind of labor? There isn't much skilled labor. And you want, as a company, when... Look, a contact center is the face of the company. And we definitely don't want our clients to have the experience that someone from a village is speaking, who picked up the phone for the first time. Therefore, well, businesses call us too. We have business-to-business clients who also evaluate our contact center. And we've even had cases where they came to us and asked for service, basically saying, take us on and be our contact center as well. Yes, the voice bot allows us to reduce the number of line agents while having qualified personnel by redistributing the workload to the remaining staff. And we have highly motivated people. They are constantly learning, they enjoy it, they happily go to work, and they do not want to leave for other companies. This is very valuable and important for us because the more qualified a person is, the more client questions they can resolve on the spot. And VoiceBot here, yes, we definitely won't give it up. Even if 100 people come to our contact center and say, "Let us work for you day and night for $20, just give us a place to sleep." No, well, for us, this is also a metric of success, digitalization, modernity, that we are current in time, current in technology, keeping up with the times, so to speak, as well. So it's also a significant fact that we know how to use it.
Thank you. I think this will be a very useful insight for everyone working in markets with low wage levels. We have heard very similar feedback from our partner clients who work in Mexico. Yes, the wage level is very low, but at the same time, the level of qualification is also very low. And accordingly, what can be done with a digital assistant in most cases cannot be done by employees without a certain level of qualification.
Inessa actually fits into all the categories. And the last thing she says is that processes handled by voice bots save money. And those savings from using technology give you the opportunity to invest in your employees, in training, and again in technology, products, and so on. In conclusion, actually, our conversation today, because the heat is strong already, we are all quite flushed.
Even here in the northern latitudes, it's 20 degrees warm.
And in our Arctic region, the temperature is even lower. I wanted to ask Dennis a final question about Uzbekistan. We know that this is quite a strategically important direction for our business, and we initially decided to act as a platform developer and partner for Sarkor. So, maybe you have some ideas on how to express something on this topic.
Well, I'll repeat, probably yes. Together with Sarkor, we see the Uzbek market as extremely interesting despite the low wage levels. It is 40 million people. This is a very dynamically growing market. All the leading retailers, marketplaces, and financial organizations are going there now. And we believe that Sarkor, along with us, can become a center of expertise in the field of servicing not only artificial intelligence, but also in general servicing. And Inessa confirms this in our interview today with messages that other companies are coming and asking to take over the call center because artificial intelligence is not only about making things cheaper. Artificial intelligence is about making work that doesn't need to be done by people cheaper, so that this money can be taken out and invested in more qualified and competent employees who can solve complex tasks. And therefore I don't think I am sure that the next stage of our partnership with Sarkor is not going to be, but already is, the promotion of artificial intelligence products under the Sarkor brand in the Uzbekistan market.
I think we had a good conversation. We learned quite a lot from Inessa, very interesting, deep insights about the work of the voice bot. Because it's not always obvious, we as developers may not always see certain things clearly. Yes, we do all the calculations, the business, the technology, the numbers. It's all right there in front of us. But how it actually works in reality isn't always clear. And I think now we'll have this kind of hobby, interviewing clients to understand their insights. Yes.
Collect live feedback.
Yes, this feedback opens our eyes, and our clients also get a certain spark in their eyes because of it. Well, I really liked everything.
Not only do we think through our decisions again by discussing them, but we also draw conclusions and make the right decisions, which will probably allow both us and the clients to move forward and be completely aligned in terms of decisions and the benefits it can bring them.
I agree. There were such flashbacks today. What was it like? How did we work before? How? How did we even manage? Now it seems impossible to live without these processes that we have managed to streamline. And it already seems incredible to grow and develop our internal systems further without automation. Thank you for reminding us how great we are. Always nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the sincere feedback, and we look forward to the next implementations and the next stages of developing our cooperation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.